So we see how cocoa is grown, but it's important to realise that at harvest, these beans don't taste anything like chocolate. They're bitter, astringent, and quite slimy. So the big question is, where does the chocolate flavour come from? Hi there, I'm Tristan. I'm an assistant professor with the Future Food Beacon, and I'm interested in what makes chocolate so tasty.
Now, whilst all stages of processing have an influence, fermentation, drying and roasting have the biggest impacts on cocoa flavour development. In fact, cocoa that isn't fermented will never develop a chocolate-like taste or aroma. More than 600 volatile compounds have been identified in chocolate, but none of these are unique. And what we perceive as chocolate flavour is really a combination of a large number of different compounds acting in concert. So to understand how this flavour develops, we must start with the chemistry of the cocoa bean. On a dry basis, unfermented beans contain about 50% fat, 10 to 15% carbohydrate, 12 to 18% polyphenols, and anywhere between 9 and 24% protein. Let's take these one by one. Now, fat is vital to the eating quality of finished chocolate. Fat gives chocolate its glossy finish, its snap, its melt-in-the-mouth quality. All that is gooey about chocolate, its ability to coat the inside of our mouth when we eat it, all of this comes from fat. However, the composition of fat doesn't really change during fermentation, it's quite stable. And as far as we're aware, fat doesn't really directly contribute to chocolate flavour. However, fat may act as a repository for all of the volatile aroma compounds that we generate, and this may actually protect them from loss during roasting.
So the main change we see to the carbohydrate content is a breakdown of starch and sucrose into glucose and fructose, essentially reducing sugars. Now these are vital to the production of flavour during the roasting process.
However, if we're talking about sugar, we should also remember the pulp. Fresh cacao pulp is a sweet, sticky mass. It's an ideal media for a wide variety of microbial species, and it supports 3 distinct phases of fermentation. In the first phase, yeasts dominate the microbial profile, producing a variety of boozy alcohol flavours. The yeasts also break up the pulp gel, which means liquid starts to drain away as what's called sweaties, and this allows air to circulate between the beans. This in turn allows lactic acid bacteria to grow. This brings flavours like yoghurt, and then acetic acid bacteria, which bring a variety of sour and fruity flavours.
So all of these microbial end products will slowly seep into the bean, and as the temperature and the pH changes, this drives a variety of other reactions.
Cocoa polyphenols are very potent antioxidants. They can protect the plant from UV damage, from fungi, from parasites. They're quite bitter, which prevents animals from feasting on the plant. But also it's these same compounds that gives dark chocolate its bitter and slightly astringent flavour, you know, that puckering sensation on the tongue. During fermentation, many of these compounds are oxidised into larger polymers, which reduces the overall bitterness, making the cocoa more palatable, and also gives it a beautiful red-brown colour.
Finally, the protein content of beans is significantly changed during fermentation. Specifically, a globular storage protein known as vicillin is enzymatically broken down into a mixture of hydrophilic peptides and hydrophobic free amino acids. These can be converted to a wide range of alcohols, aldehydes, acids and acetates during fermentation and drying, or they can combine with reducing sugars to form an even wider range of flavours, aromas and colours during the roasting process through Maillard.
Cacao vicillin is responsible for the heart of what we know as chocolate flavour, and across different varieties of cocoa, the profile of this vicillin is nearly identical. However, when we compare the flavour and peptide profiles from fermented cocoa beans around the world, they can be hugely different, often with flavours that are unique to each farm. We think a big reason for this is differences in fermentation.
At the University of Nottingham, we're mapping out how a variety of fermentation profiles and farming practices influence the flavour of cocoa beans.
To do this, a trained sensory panel characterises the flavours associated with samples from several different farms. We then use next generation high throughput genetic sequencing tools to give us a profile of the microbiome across the fermentation process. We also use a variety of analytical techniques, including high-resolution LC mass spectrometry, to correlate changes in the chemical profile of the beans with microbial action and resulting flavour. The end result is that we can start to optimise cacao fermentations towards generating desirable fruity and spicy flavours, and we can empower cacao farmers to produce consistent, high-value and delicious cocoa.
The Future Food Beacon, exploring new ways of feeding the world.